Before Bruce Lee, Hollywood saw martial arts as nothing more than an exotic spectacle. After Bruce, they became the future of action cinema. In 1973, The Dragon changed filmmaking forever, but almost nobody remembers how it really happened. The story of how Bruce Lee changed Hollywood doesn't begin in 1973. It begins with years of Hollywood telling him no. Lee arrived in the United States as a philosophy student, a martial arts instructor, and eventually an actor chasing the same dream as everyone else in Hollywood. In 1966, he landed the role of Kato in The Green Hornet. Technically, he was a supporting character, but every time he appeared on screen, he was the fastest, most magnetic presence in the entire show. The series was canceled after just one season. Hollywood's verdict was clear. Audiences would pay to watch an Asian man move like that, but they would not pay to see him as the leading man. By 1972, Hollywood was going through one of the strangest periods in its history. Action films were still dominated by cowboys, police officers, and spies. Fight scenes were slow, exaggerated, and unrealistic. To most studios, martial arts were not a genre capable of attracting mainstream audiences. They were merely an exotic curiosity reserved for supporting characters or Asian villains. And Bruce Lee understood that reality better than anyone. The Dragon kept trying. He choreographed fight scenes for other people's films. He pitched the idea for a television series about a Shaolin monk traveling across the American Old West, a concept he had developed himself. The studio said yes to the idea, but no to Bruce Lee. They cast David Carradine instead. The series, Kung Fu, became a success without him. Frustrated by the lack of opportunities, Bruce made a decision that seemed like a step backward, but would ultimately change history. He returned to Hong Kong to prove that he did not need Hollywood's approval to become a star. Without realizing it, he was about to force the entire industry to look toward the East. Bruce arrived in Hong Kong convinced that he could still make it as an actor, but no one imagined what was about to happen. When he agreed to star in The Big Boss, the film had a modest budget and was never expected to become a worldwide phenomenon. Yet from the day it premiered, theaters began filling up like never before. Audiences were stunned by something they had never seen on screen. Bruce Lee did not fight like traditional action heroes. Every punch looked real. Every kick carried incredible speed and power. His movements possessed a level of precision that made Hollywood's action choreography look outdated. Within weeks, The Big Boss shattered Hong Kong's box office records and became the highest-grossing film in the territory's history. But that was no stroke of luck. Just a few months later came Fist of Fury, and once again it shattered every record that had come before. Lee did more than act. He redefined what a fight scene could be on camera. Bruce was no longer just a local star. He had become a phenomenon across all of Asia. No clumsy stunt doubles, no exaggerated slow motion, real speed, real precision. Hong Kong audiences had never seen anything like it, and the film demolished local box office records. While Hollywood continued producing westerns and detective movies, on the other side of the world, millions of people were lining up to watch an actor the American film industry had deemed unfit to carry a movie as its leading man. As The Big Boss and Fist of Fury shattered every box office record across Asia, Bruce Lee had a much bigger goal. He did not want to become only the biggest star in Hong Kong cinema. He wanted to prove to Hollywood that it had been wrong to reject him.
Well, let me say this. When I do the Chinese film, I'll try my best not to be as American as I, have been adjusted to for the last 12 years in the States. But when I go back to the States, it seems to be the other way around. You know what I mean?
Too exotic, eh?
Yeah, man. I mean, they're trying to get me to do too many things that are really for the sake of being exotic.
In 1972, he decided to take things one step further. He wrote, directed, and starred in Way of the Dragon, a film over which he had almost complete creative control. He no longer depended on producers limiting his ideas or studios telling him how fight scenes should look. Bruce designed the choreography exactly as he had always envisioned it. Fast, precise, and with a level of realism commercial cinema had never seen before. And then came the scene that would change the history of action cinema forever. The final fight against Chuck Norris in the Roman Colosseum instantly became one of the most famous fight scenes ever filmed. There was no over-the-top music, no constant camera cuts. Just two martial artists facing each other with an intensity that made millions of viewers forget everything Hollywood had taught them about what a fight was supposed to look like. The impact was enormous.
This is a famous, famous fight scene that you had with Bruce Lee.
I still consider it a classic.
It holds up. I watched it today, and you know they've advanced fight scenes so much, but this really holds up. It's an amazing fight scene.
Well, I think the main reason Bruce was really ahead of his time.
Bruce's films were no longer dominating only in Asia. They were beginning to attract the attention of American distributors and studio executives. For the first time, the major studios realized that audiences were willing to pay to see an Asian hero leading a major motion picture. That was the moment Hollywood stopped asking whether Bruce Lee could be a star and started asking how much money he could make for them. Without realizing it, Hollywood had just created its own greatest future competitor, and it still had no idea how big a mistake it had made. By the end of 1972, Bruce Lee was no longer chasing Hollywood. Hollywood was chasing him. In December 1972, Warner Bros. Finally offered Bruce Lee what he had wanted for more than a decade, a genuine leading role in a real American production, backed by a major Hollywood studio. It would become the first official co-production between Hollywood and Hong Kong's Golden Harvest, a sign in itself that the old walls were beginning to crack. The project was called Enter the Dragon. On paper, it was a modest genre film, a martial arts take on James Bond, made for less than $1 million, and intended as an inexpensive experiment to see whether American audiences would accept an Asian leading man. Lee saw it differently. He treated it as his one chance to prove, on Hollywood's own turf, that everything he had already accomplished in Asia was real. Production began in Hong Kong in February 1973. A relentless perfectionist, Lee pushed himself without mercy training, choreographing, rewriting scenes on the fly, and insisting that every fight sequence reflect real martial arts instead of Hollywood's conventional choreography. He was building the blueprint that action cinema would follow for the next 50 years. Long takes without excessive cuts, storytelling through physical movement, and the idea that a fight scene could carry just as much drama as any line of dialogue. But the toll on his body was severe. In May 1973, while production was still underway, Lee collapsed during a dubbing session at Golden Harvest Studios. Doctors found swelling in his brain and gave him a blunt warning: slow down. He flew to Los Angeles for a complete medical evaluation, briefly reunited with his longtime training partner, Dan Inosanto, and by early summer had returned to Hong Kong, seemingly recovered, to finish the final promotional work for the film he believed would change his life. Enter the Dragon wrapped production in April 1973. Warner Bros. Scheduled its U.S. release for August, giving Lee the widest platform he had ever had, the culmination of everything he had fought for over the previous decade. He never got to see it. On July 20, 1973, 6 days before the film's Hong Kong premiere and 3 weeks before its release in the United States, Bruce Lee died in Hong Kong at the age of 32. The official conclusion was that he suffered a fatal cerebral edema, triggered by a reaction to a headache medication. The suddenness of it all, a man at the peak of human physical conditioning, dead almost overnight, was so shocking that rumors of poisoning and ancient curses followed his death for decades. None of those theories has ever been proven. What is certain is that the industry whose doors Lee had spent his entire career trying to force open did not fully open them until he was no longer there to walk through. Enter the Dragon premiered in Hong Kong on July 26, 1973, and opened in Los Angeles that August. It became one of the highest-grossing films of the year, eventually earning more than $200 million worldwide, against a budget of less than $1 million, one of the most extraordinary returns on investment in film history. But beyond the numbers, it changed what a leading man was allowed to be. For the first time, mainstream American audiences filled theaters specifically to watch an Asian actor carry an entire movie not as comic relief, not as the villain, but as the hero on whom the entire story revolved. The studios that had spent years insisting audiences would never accept an Asian leading man were now staring at box office receipts proving exactly the opposite. The impact was immediate and long-lasting. Martial arts films exploded into the American mainstream almost overnight. Kung fu fighting topped the music charts the following year. A wave of martial arts movies tried and mostly failed to recreate what Lee had accomplished, because none of them had Bruce Lee. Fight choreography across the industry shifted toward the realism and precision he had demanded. Generations of filmmakers, from Jackie Chan to the Wachowskis, and even directors of today's superhero films, have pointed to Enter the Dragon as the moment that permanently changed the grammar of action cinema. Bruce Lee made only 4 starring films during his lifetime. He shot less footage than many actors today film for a single modern franchise. And yet the shape of action cinema, the way fight scenes are filmed, the way physical performance is treated as an art form, and the idea that a hero no longer has to fit Hollywood's old assumptions can all be traced back to what he built during that final year. He did not just earn the leading role Hollywood had denied him for more than a decade. He proved that the very premise they had used to reject him was completely wrong, and he did it without ever living to see the evidence reach the screen. That is how a man who never lived to see his greatest film became the reason Hollywood could never look the same again. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, we have another one waiting for you right here.